Whatever the news event is, whether it is a small or big moment in history, we expect to see pictures of it. Photojournalism is all around us. It is newspapers, online articles, blogs, magazines, and more. Photojournalists were the first to embrace digital photography, and without them, publications today would not be as powerful as they are.
It all started in 1842, when the introduction of the first form of photography in journalism came about. This was when illustrations were published in the Illustrated London News, the world's first illustrated weekly news magazine. The illustrations were printed with the use of engravings. After this, the development of photojournalism came quickly.
During the Crimean War, the Illustrated London News launched the birth of photojournalism by printing pictures of the war taken by Roger Fenton. Fenton was the first war photographer, and his work made way for the future of photojournalism.
Matthew Brady followed in Fenton's footsteps and documented the Civil War. The photographs he took were engraved before publication in Harper's Weekly. The topic of war was a popular thing to cover at the time, but these developments in photography sparked interest in public events or tragedies such as train wrecks or even fires in cities.
The halftone process permitted photographs and text to be printed together. Before the halftone process was perfected, prints had to be converted into drawings and then into woodcuts before they could appear as news pictures. The process of the halftone is using dots differing in size to create an optical illusion that the pictures weren't printed with just one color, even though they were.
After this process was perfected, photographs were expected to be in news stories. The Illustrated American News said, "These are no fancy sketches. They are the actual life of the place reproduced upon paper."
John Thompson transformed photojournalism even further by partnering up with Adolph Smith, a radical journalist in London. Together they created a monthly magazine called Street Life in London, in which Thompson used photographs of street people combined with text. This established social documentary photography as a form of photojournalism.
The golden ages of photojournalism are said to have been between the 1930s and the 1950s. This was made possible by the development of the 35mm film camera in 1925 and the development of the first flash bulbs between 1927 and 1930. These developments in technology really gave photographers a lot of versatility in the field. One of these photographers was Henri Cartier-Bresson. He is known by some as the father of photojournalism and the master of candid photography. Bresson was one of the first photojournalists to adapt the use of the 35mm Leica camera and assisted in the development of candid street photography. Henri Cartier-Bresson took lessons with his uncle to learn how to do oil painting and became quite good. After his uncle died, Bresson tried his hand at photography and used his skills that he learned in painting to compose better photographs. The first time Bresson published a journalistic photo was in 1937 when he covered the coronation of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth for the French Weekly.
With these advances in photojournalism, more magazines and newspapers started to appear. Some of these publications include Life magazine, Look magazine, and the New York Daily News.
Life magazine was one of the very first magazines to have a major focus on photojournalism. The magazine was published for a humorous and general interest audience. Life was published weekly until 1972. After that, it became a monthly magazine and is still published today.
The New York Daily News is the fourth and most widely circulated daily newspaper in the United States. It had the slogan, New York's Picture Newspaper, from 1920 to 1991. The New York Daily News even incorporates a camera in their logo. The newspaper made sure that there is an emphasis on the use of photography in their publication. As photojournalism became more popular, newspapers began to incorporate more and more photos into the paper. Although at the time, a lot of newspapers used low-end letterpresses that printed low-quality photos with easily smudging inks and yellow-tinted papers. It wasn't until the 1980s that the development of more advanced presses came about. This allowed newspapers to print higher-quality photos on whiter paper. With the decline of photojournalism in the 1970s caused by seas of publication, many photojournalists found it necessary to develop professional organizations. Some of these organizations today are MPPA, CPPA, and the NPPA.
The Michigan Press Photographers Association, the Central Press Photographers Association, and the National Press Photographers Association are all groups in the United States that focus on proper treatment of photojournalists. These groups also hold competitions and influence photographers to be the best that they can. The development of these professional organizations made way for the development of highly professional groups of photojournalists that relied heavily on a new developed code of ethics. The future of photojournalism began here and continues to grow as a popular career choice among many professional photographers.
With the continued development of new publications, photojournalism continues to grow. Modern-day photojournalism owes its success to the dedicated members of past photojournalism, as well as the development of the photography products. Without these developments in historic photojournalists, photojournalism would not be what it is today.